I don't know about you, but I've gone down so many airline rabbit holes on my For You page lately, like the day in the life of pilots, Emirates crew dropping their rosters, and of course all the tea going on with Spirit Airlines right now. Rest in peace. But I've always been so interested in this like behind the scenes experience of working for an airline. I've seen so many videos talking about the flight attendant training experience, and the one thing that always stuck out to me was there would be a giant pool, they'd submerge the airplane in the pool, the flight attendants have to get out and do the water evacuation procedures. So I've always been like, oh, I just like want to see it up and close and personal. Maybe not literally in the water, but you know, I want to see it. And of course, also learn about the other procedures and trainings that happen in an airline. But did you know that in Japan, you can actually go behind the scenes for a tour of these training facilities? Specifically with All Nippon Airlines, otherwise known as ANA, ANA, you name it. The ANA Blue Base is the main training facilities for pretty much all crew when it comes to ANA. From the ground staff to cargo, to flight attendants, to pilots, to maintenance, engineering, you name it, they are probably here working hard to practice and perfect the omotenashi experience that ANA is so well known for. And this beautiful facility is located so close to the airport. Now, I am a little bit of an av geek, so I have done some tours in my time. Like for example, I've done the JAL Sky Museum, I've done the JAL Hangar Tour, but what makes this one so different is that you literally get to see the training in action. So if you're looking for something to do before your flight out of Haneda, or maybe you have a layover long enough to leave the airport and come back, or you're just looking for something to do, let me tell you, this is the experience. Walking up to the ANA Blue Base, I was blown away. The building opened in about 2019 and started serving tours in 2021. From the moment that you step in those doors, you feel like you are in a mini airport. You're greeted at a front desk that looks like a check-in counter at the airport. There's a huge departure sign where it shows all the upcoming tours. Since it's a long walking tour, they have lockers to the side for you to put some of your personal belongings, and each locker has a dedicated airline code. I got Frankfurt. I've never been there, but knew the air code. Then in the waiting area to the left, there's a gift shop, but then to your right, you're literally in what looks and feels like the gate at the airport with the seats just like the ones you'd see at the airport. And it was so fun. I was a little gagged. And you wait there for your tour to be called. And when they call for your tour, they do that little airline notification sound.
10時20分発 ABB 2便はただいまより皆様のおツアーへとご案内いたします。10時20分発 ABB 2便をご利用のお客様は搭乗券の QR コードをかざして搭乗口をお取りください。
So when the tour is beginning, just like you're boarding a plane in Japan, you scan your ticket and you go through. It was so much fun. The tour starts with a photo op at the ANA Blue Base logo on this wall. They were asking if people wanted pictures in front of it, and at first I was kind of like, not really. But then they said it's the only place in the world where you can take a picture with that specific logo. And then I was like, okay, yeah, I kind of had to do that. Yeah, you convinced me. Then we gathered in a circle around a bunch of models of ANA's fleet. And then in the middle, we have a big retro ANA plane. What was interesting about it though was the logo. The tour guide said it was inspired by Leonardo da Vinci. It turns out ANA used to be called the Nippon Helicopter and Airplane Transport Company. I did some research. Apparently right after World War II, there were a bunch of restrictions on civilian aviation, so they had to focus more on delivery. But anyway, on to the facility. From this point, my B-roll is gonna be a bit non-existent, but I will try to show you visual guides along the way of talking about this tour with media that is public information and is shared on their website. And it's absolutely fair that we cannot take videos and photos here because you are actually seeing trainees and employees at their workspace. This tour, for the most part from here on, looking at the facility, was like you were up in an elevated hallway, but then you have floor to ceiling windows that you look out and you see overhead the facilities. And so we look to the left and we're seeing like all the training facility, but then if you look to the right, you see the regular place, the work pods where employees are on their computer doing real work. The first training room we saw had a ton of check-in counters. This is for the ground crew checking in passengers, helping load them up with their luggage, things like that. And they had every single kind of check-in counter that you could possibly find in the ANA system. So that way, no matter where they are placed, they know exactly what to handle, no matter what airport they're at. Then we got to the cabin crew training rooms. This was so exciting. I could see the pool glimmering in a distance into the window's reflection. And I was like, yes, we're making it to my dreams. So there were 2 pools, and one of them had an airplane sort of half submerged in water. It wasn't the full thing. I would say it's just like the front third. And then it had a raft that was already out. So this is where the crew would practice, water evacuation. The next room was a dry room, and there were a few chunks of planes, just like we saw in the wet room, being shaken around and moved. These are actually turbulence simulators that the cabin crew uses to practice things like serving food and drink. Then we moved on to the engineering and maintenance room. So we were looking down and saw all different parts of an aircraft that these engineers and maintenance crew need for their training. And we looked down, we actually saw training in session with everyone in their helmets, and our tour guide let us know what the different colors of some different helmets meant in terms of their rank and their experience and what they do, if they're an instructor, student, someone who's been there more than a few years, someone who's been there a lot of years. We quickly walked by some training rooms for CPR and first aid training for the cabin crew. And then we got to the airplane simulation room for the pilots. They had various simulations for pilots to train on both Boeing aircrafts and Airbus aircrafts. And lucky for us, one of the pilots was actually in the process of doing their simulator. And so we saw it like moving around, going up and down and stuff like that. Our tour guide said that using the simulator, which usually takes, I believe, 4 hours to complete because you have 2 pilots and each one gets about a 2-hour session, but just 1 hour of that session in electricity cost 1 million yen. Yeah, 1 million yen. But they say safety is safety no matter the cost. But after that, we got to experience a video version of the simulator. Then we were finally allowed to pull our cameras back out for one last experience. And this is a photo op room that is so cool. And if you don't care about aviation, but you like Instagram, this place is worth it, okay? I was having the time of my life. They had full-on sets for every sort of career that you could have that we just looked at, as well as costumes. You had a check-in counter where you can check people in, weigh their baggage. You could be an engineer changing out the landing gears with the helmets and stuff. You could be a gate operator. You could be a person that signals the plane to come this way with the little cones. And most excitingly for me was there was a business class section, and then get dressed up as a flight attendant and have the little cart and go serve food and water, as well as the pilot cockpit. It was so much fun. I had a blast. The tour guide and one other person was there to help take pictures of everyone and get videos as well. It was so much fun. I was living my dream. I'm like way too short to be a flight attendant, so this is the closest I got to doing that. And after our photo op, our tour came to an end. I loved learning about the inner workings of this airline and the airline industry in general. I can absolutely see myself going again and bringing a friend who might be in town. Now, if you would like to be part of one of these tours, they do offer some English tours. Check their website well in advance to see like when they're announcing that they're gonna have stuff for sale, because I believe it sells very quickly, but it is absolutely worth it. But if you can speak Japanese or you have an interpreter coming with you, then there are plenty of Japanese tours to go on as well. Even if you just love to travel and the experience of traveling, this is so entertaining. Like, I'm not someone who really goes to museums. Tours can become boring at times, but for me, I was very thoroughly entertained the whole time, and I was kind of sad that it was over. But that is the ANA Blue base in Tokyo, Japan. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like this video if you found this helpful and subscribe for more travel content in Japan and beyond.